morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Living Truthfully. My name is Amani Maranga, and we are on episode 21. This is absolutely crazy. Listen, guys, if you've ever dreamt of doing anything, just start. Just start. Who would have thought that would be on episode 21 of Living Truthfully? I'm so grateful for the feedback that you continue to give us. I'm grateful for the sharing that you're doing on the podcast and of the podcast. Tell me what you're thinking at Amani Maranga on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Tell me what you're thinking if you have my phone number. And let's talk about dads, which is the topic that we're about to start today. We started last week and Pau told us about his father. Now, in this week, we have a new gentleman. Now, well, he's not new. He wasn't minted yesterday. But he's new on Living Truthfully. But he's not new to Living Truthfully. Edward Wanyonyi has been probably one of those ardent Living Truthfully listeners from the very beginning, giving us feedback every week through my super producer Lee Kanyato. Papa was a rolling stone. Yeah, anyway, so Edward is a friend of Lee, and he is now my friend because he's on Living Truthfully. Welcome, Dana Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Manny.
Boss, you have quite the CV.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I asked this guy what he does. Then he told me he's multidisciplinary. I sat down. So tell us, what do you do?
Well, into research, primarily looking at two areas. One, communication, media. That was my initial background. And then later on, I branched into war studies. So looking at dimensions in terms of peacekeeping operations, issues to do with how our security is structured, and how Africa negotiates at that place, because most of the time you find decisions are made at another level, and then Africa gets to become a consumer. So just looking at that level in terms of the interaction, in terms of where are we placed in terms of this whole thing called security.
You see what I mean? War studies. How does war studies play out in the home?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because there's there's a guy called Johan Galtung who was one of the first primary peace researchers and scholars, and he said the conflict that every human being deals with is living well, living long.
Living well and living long. That's a conflict.
That is a conflict.
But are they in conflict? Is living well and living long in conflict?
And that is the thing, because if you have limited resources, you will have to strive. Do I have it for today or do I have it for now? And how it plays at the home is how you're raised. Are you raised to take immediate gratification or postponed? So do you take it, all the blessings that you have, all the opportunities you have, everything you have at the same time? Or do you have the opportunity to let it marinate for a while?
Delayed gratification.
Yes.
It's a concept that I'm struggling with. I'm the former.
Yes, so that is the thing. Living long, living well. How do we shape it? It starts at the family level, then it goes to the society, the community, and the country at large. Then we start asking ourselves, what is happening? But it starts at the home.
Wow.
How we are raised.
And he was just trying to be funny. And the guy had an answer to it. Mr. Wanyonyi, thank you for coming to Living Truthfully. I'm very grateful that you've been an ardent listener of the podcast. Tell me, what has this podcast been to you, and what has it done for you, if it has done anything?
In my line of work, one of the things which has been very strong, and been trying to do a bit of research, is the whole idea of what they call androsphere, the space of men.
It's called androsphere.
Androsphere.
Right.
Yes. So the space of men and how men exert their agency, whether in terms of politics, whether in terms of family, whether in terms of social. And increasingly, there's been a lot of voice in terms of, the man is not doing enough. The man is not rising up to the occasion. The man is not doing so much. And if you just go back to research, you ask, what has the man been given? So when Lee came and said, hey, we're starting a conversation here and it's living truthfully and it's featuring men, I was like, wow, this is the opportunity. Wow. We can start shaping the conversation with our stories. And something this guy called Zig Ziglar talked about, failing forward. I think that is something interesting we need to talk about. Why? Because we may not fit in the model of what you'd call an X5, a BMW, a house in Runda, degrees more than a thermometer, but you're doing something. And so that's the story that I want this to be. I hear it, living truthfully, bringing out the fact that there are those silent struggles that men are going through, and they're part of the journey. We don't just celebrate the destination; we also celebrate the process.
And it's about the process. What was a big story for you? What was a story that you had, or a conversation that you had on a podcast that you were like, wow?
I think I like that conversation that was done by Dr. Githua. And it was interesting because it talked about that idea of emotional hostage, which I think is something we have never delved into. We most men, especially when you're raised in rural, urban, and then the dynamics of a broken family, what the society calls broken. I don't think it is broken. It's just circumstantial. I think you end up in such a situation, and then you don't know that this is actually what is being applied on you. It's a blackmail. It's an emotional hostage situation, more or less an emotional prison, but then you do not understand it. So I think that podcast was an eye opener to me. I listened to it and I just stopped for a while and said, "Wow, this is a breakthrough."
Wow. This series is on fatherhood, and I'm talking about fatherhood because I want to see how does our relationships with our fathers affect how we father. Are fathers important? Do they have a role? We know mothers feed the babies, they breastfeed, they give comfort, they give love, they nurture. So what do dads do?
There are two things that I think we need to just unpack. For me, my experience has been this, that there is a model, a script that has been put forward. The father protects, the father provides, and then the father procreates. The 3 Ps. But then we know that with post-industrialization, the mother has come to a place of providing. She can also protect because there are women who are now in security. So in terms of procreation, we are being told there's an IVF system that is there. So really, where does the father come? Ideally, we should look at a situation whereby the father has to recreate himself in this position apart from the 3 Ps. And that recreation, for me, it's more about relationship. And I think because of our societies and how they're structured, it omitted the idea of relationship completely, especially at parenting level. For the millennials, the children who are born post 1980, if you ask them,
84,
the relationship they had with their parents was one which the eye could tell you, get out of the sitting room. There was no really any form of relationship with your parent. Your parent would say, birthday, what birthday? You go and study, bring me the grades. So it was more of an instructional, a kind of upbringing whereby the father gives or the mother gives you instructions, and then you as a child, you take them, you become a good child, and then you raise them. Now look at this current generation of post 1990 who are now the post 2000 who are now the children we're raising right now, who are more into democracy. You have to negotiate. It has to make sense fast. They will not take the instruction. You have to win them. Now what canvas are you using when yours had no level of relationship or discourse? It was purely instruction. So we have to rethink our model or our role of fatherhood differently, and not necessarily bash what we went through, because it had a role in terms of what they are coming from. Independence, countries which are coming from war like Uganda, there was no role. When people complain so much about those societies, you find their fathers, they are timid. They're not timid because they're traumatized that they are growing. That's what they saw. So they will not be open and talk about things and take you to go out there and conquer the world, which your father, or the role of the father, should be in terms of cheering, motivating, inspiring, telling you to dare, go forth. They will be more conservative because of what they went through.
Tell me about your dad.
My dad is an interesting chap. We grew up in, our initial place was Nakuru. My father was that time a provincial family planning officer. After some time...
How many children are you? How many siblings?
We are 4.
Okay.
But then later on, we came to realize we have stepbrothers. Yeah, so we moved to Bungoma, I think in around 1986.
Okay.
We were staying with our stepbrothers. So, I mean, growing up, we knew these are just one family. So we grew up, and then I think around 1990 the guy became a bit not coming home, absent. So things would happen. He would pop in and out. So in that time,
Was he working away from Bungoma?
Yeah, he was working. But the idea of transfer to Bungoma is because now he had left family planning and gone back to his initial career, which was teaching. So my mom is a teacher, my dad is a teacher. And so we were thinking, finally now the guy will be at home. But then he was not coming home most of the time. He was coming, going. And in between that, we could see a level of strain, in terms of we were not having a level of cohesion as we would expect that he comes and stays for long. So he could come and visit and go. And I think around 1994, my mom, I think one incident just took us out of that cover, Auctioneers came home.
Oh no.
And it was a bit of a challenge because we could not understand what they were coming for. And so everything was taken, and we had to take, stones, and just put in the house and sit there and have our tea. We had to borrow from our neighbors. We had a neighbor who was a pastor, so they donated some items for us. And I think that incident made my mom to think through and say, you know what, this is not going to happen next time. So my mom went and bought land, something which was unheard of in Bungoma. I mean, coming from a Luya community whereby they consider the 3 Ps again. So my mom was disrupting that system of provision. So she went and bought land. And for the first few years, we're just growing food. So my mom said, whatever happens, you have school, because you're going to the school which she was teaching, but you'll have food. Within some time, she went ahead and sank a borehole.
Wow.
And then started thinking about now putting up, a madhouse. And said, we're going to have to stay somewhere. But if it's a madhouse, but at least no one is going to knock the door and say rent or say anything. This is our house. So that whole incident disrupted everything. And my dad walked out. So my dad walks out, and he did it in the most brutal manner. He called us one evening and said he's leaving. And if we meet him in town, we can decide whether to talk to him, greet him or not. He's left and he doesn't have anything to do with us. We can decide whether we want to use his name or not. I was at home with my sister, and my mom tried to tell him, why are you talking like this in front of the children? I mean, could you just talk to him? My dad became a bit, raised his voice. So when that happened, dropped silence at night. And then I'm asking myself, what is the meaning of him leaving? What does leaving mean? What does leaving mean? And saying we could use his name or not, or we could possibly ignore him. And his last words I remember was live and let live. So I wouldn't have known the extent of those words until much later, when a very unfortunate incident happened. I mean, Luya land we know in terms of circumcision is big. I mean, I don't think there's any community which does it, throws the party down like we do it. So it's big. So when I was supposed to be circumcised, my mom calls him, finds, ways of reaching out. There was no mobile phones during those days. Finds ways and says, you know what, this has to happen. Traditionally, it need to happen. So, of course, normally the procedure culturally it's you, as a son, you raise the concern to the mother, and then the mother raises to the father, and the father says, is he ready? Or is he going to embarrass me? Then the father comes and asks you now, are you ready really to be a man? Do you understand it? Because then after that, the whole process is taken over by the dad and your uncles. It becomes a very, male-led process. So
I've never had that before. I didn't know you talk to your mom and then your mom talks to your dad. So ideally, you breach. So that time he's not there. He's not coming home. He's taken another home. Second mom, what people call stepmom. I don't use the word step. So he's gone there. So eventually you try to track him and have conversation. He's not picking up. So I decided to venture. Because, in Bukusu land, what happens is that if your dad does not take up the responsibility, what normally happens, you can actually follow the circumcision party and throw yourself inside the pool where they are, smearing people with the clay. And once you've thrown yourself in that pool, with the boys who is going to be circumcised, the responsibility becomes you have to be circumcised because you're already in the pool. So you have to be circumcised what happens. So I think that was the threat. And so every father in that context will avoid the idea that they were not able to raise their children to take the responsibility of circumcision. So their child had to throw themselves, in the pool. So he came around. Wow.
So he came around, said he will do the process. So went through the circumcision process. And then I remember now when I was fully healed, and so he comes and says, now you're fully healed, now you're a man. Ideally, normally it's always a big party that is thrown, but he just came and called me at the corner of the compound. We've moved now to a new home and everything is well. So he says, now you're a man. You just need to know, in the olden times, you could give you a spear and a shield. You defend yourself. Right now, we are in a modern world. Your spear is your pen, your shield is your book. So you need to work hard in school. And I'm not here. So you need to protect your mom. Makiu, Amani, I am the last born.
Wow.
All my brothers are
gone.
Up there, gone. They're in school. So he's telling me, you need to protect your mom. You need to defend the home. I cannot be somewhere where I am and I'm being told that someone has come here and insulted your mom or done anything in the compound. So imagine at that tender age, you're being given the first P. I think I was in class. I was in my early teens.
So maybe
early teens.
12, 13.
Yeah. So I'm being given the first P. Protection.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what does this protect my mom mean? Well, time rolls. I go finish class 8. I'm an average student. And my mom says, okay, the results have come. We need to talk to your dad. Go to high school. My dad is like, no, my children cannot perform like this. He needs to go back, repeat, go to a national school. Makiu, he's never been there.
But he's still giving...
Yes, he's giving instructions. Still doing the instructions, not the relationship, doing the instructions. My children have to perform better. They have to go back. So my mom says, no. This guy, I know him. He's the kind of person who may not perform very well as you expect, but he knows what he's doing. Just give him time. If you make him to repeat, it will discourage him. Let him just go to high school. So my mom had to hustle and get me high school on her own. And I joined high school around late mid-March, when the term is actually ending in April. So I go to school, and it was quite a hassle because the guy never prepared anything. My dad never gave anything during my high school. So my mom had to take, bed sheets and cut them into two and stitch them and put my name. She took her own Bible, gave it to me. She had to hustle and bring about whatever little could have been gathered, donated from here and there, and I went to school. So we went with her. I reached school, and the senior teacher who was admitting us was like, this guy is coming at this time. When the time is over, what is he going to learn? This dictionary you've come with, it's a used dictionary. We don't accept this. Just sitting there, my mom being humiliated. But I was a bit determined. Like, this is my place. I will make something. First time ended. My mom was struggling with school fees, and those days were days of telegram. So, Mom, I'm sick. Those
Mom,
things. Sick.
Yeah.
You put it there.
There's not even time for it's expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sick. Come, sick. That's
Period.
it. So you send those things. Second time I stabilized, and I realized, well, I have to do this. And the only way I can be able to manage is to do clubs. So I went and joined clubs so that I can be actually indispensable in the school. And being indispensable so that I cannot be chased away for school fees. So I had to do drama club, I have to do science congress, I have to do all those things. The good thing is that my talent took me to places. My gift took me to places, so I was able to do national. So I became an asset to the school. And that's how I carried through high school. My dad was nowhere in the scene.
What was the impact of your father's absence for you?
I think the impact had two issues in terms of, one, what does this term fatherhood mean? Because I never saw it in practice at an early stage. And then the other thing is, when I was now coming into what you'd call now post-college campus, getting into working life,
Adult life.
you realize that there is no one who is holding your hand. Other people, their father, they're giving them opportunities and referrals here and there, and say, oh, go and so see and so is my friend, I'll be able to send you. I had to come in Nairobi and hustle it hard. My dad came for the first time to my house this year.
Wow.
All those years, 36 years, he came to my house for the first time. He never knew where I was staying in Nairobi. He never knew how I was paying rent. He never knew anything about me. He was completely out of the picture. We could talk on phone once in a while, but it wasn't like on something which you'd say you'd look forward to. It wasn't spontaneous.
You're a father now.
Yes.
How many children?
I have now, in total, 4 children.
In total?
In total.
Explain using the help of a well-labeled diagram.
I have 2 children of my own, that I would say of my own. And then I'm in a blended family.
Okay.
So that means I'm also taking care of 2 more children. And this is quite an experience.
Talk to me through the circumstances that led you to this blended family.
I had 2 relationships that were not successful initially, and both produced a child each. And so what ended up as a situation whereby it was more or less of an impasse in terms of, I can't go back to any of the mothers because the relationships were irretrievable, and now the only thing which was there was just to raise the children. And then, lucky enough, I met someone who had 2 children and was divorced and was starting afresh. And so we merged the 2. And so we have now one family.
Wow.
And
do you live with all your children?
Well, as per now, not all the children are in. We are making progress to ensure that all the children are in.
But you're involved in all their lives.
But involved in all their lives, talking, And of course, the whole idea of trying to now blend it, and blending is interesting because it is not just about the relationship of the two partners. It's also the relationship of the children and also you and the children. So there are quite a number of tangents there. Each child is trying to triangulate themselves with the other children, with you, with the new partner in the house, with the new forms of authority, with the new lines of responsibility, and also with themselves, knowing that, okay, fine, we are in this situation. Remember, all the children are coming in with a deficiency of sorts in terms of there's a gap. But it is a gap that has been occasioned by circumstances which are beyond our control as parents.
The two children that came with your partner now,
yes,
they have a father?
Yes, they have a father.
Who is involved in their lives?
At the moment, he's not involved as he should. He's also a bit out, and it has been that for a while. And so they have not been able to see and leave alone just talk, but see and engage with him. And it has been that for a while.
Wow.
And so they're also coming into a totally new setting.
Dude, you operate in a minefield. Let me just call it what it is. You operate in a minefield. How are you still alive?
What keeps it sane and it is going each day, it is just the fact that where I'm coming from, there is no hope. So you're just like in a situation whereby those runners, athletes from E10, they're not running because that is what they want to do. They're running away from poverty.
So when they win world records, it's because...
That is it. It is not about the world record. It's about a complete departure away from what they have.
Yeah.
Because, what is there? So, in Europe, they're running for sports, physical exercise. This guy from E10 is running from poverty and everything else.
He's running for his life.
He's running for his life. So that is what it is for me. I look at these children and I am like, this is it for them. Despite the fact that they can go into a foster home and be given education and be, whatever opportunities their talents can give them, but what parenting does to them, it will stay with them.
So what kind of father are you?
I would say I'm reflective and purposeful. I want to continue being present in my children's lives and see how they are gonna reflect back on what they are going through right now, because that is the first I have been through. And I look back every time and say, this is what my father missed. I would want to do something different. And so I'm saying, as I do whatever I'm doing right now, if it's to take them out, if it is to spend some time with them, answer their questions, and I'm saying these are the things which they would, when they will be fathering in their future, where there would be parents, they would reflect back and say, he did this for us.
You're trying to be present, you're trying to be involved.
Yes.
That's what I hear from you.
Yes.
You're trying not to be your father.
Just to be me.
Just to be you.
Yes.
I've heard the saying that the more you try not to be something, you become it.
Yes. It is.
Does that play in any way for you?
I think to a conscious level, just being authentic, being you, doing you in your situation. Because you see, my dad had not gotten a situation like what I have. He had all the opportunity to just make it right in his own time and what would have done well. I am looking at just doing right by what I am in my particular situation simply because of its unique identifiers, so to speak.
We were just talking about this article I was reading, and it was talking about the ambivalence, the conflict of fatherhood with being present and involved like you are, and the lack of freedom to do the other things that you'd like to do as a guy, as a dude. Spend more time with other men, for example. Come to a man cave like this one, living truthfully and bare your heart. How does that work out for you?
It is more of what the economists call opportunity costs. You just see what is the value of what I'm foregoing. What is the value of what I'm going to let go or negotiate, or what you go back to what we had in the first part, delayed gratification. Living long and living well. So ideally, for me, it is to see that there's a small time capsule with the children. 2 terms of a presidency, they are gone. 20 years. They are gone. They're independent, they're in campus. After that, give them another 5 years. They're actually starting the conversation of, I need to go out. They will do that for a while, and then in their mid-30s, that's when now, because now they are also in that space of now parenting, they realize, well, there's value now in actually spending time with, the old man, parents, because now it comes back.
They're the ones who are doing.
Yeah. So for me, I'm saying within this short time span, what am I arming them? What am I feeding in them? What am I impressing upon their minds that they will be able to play back? So it's just the little things that I'm trying to ask myself, like life skills, spending time in terms of life skills, and trying to really urge them to be more perceptive, to be more concerned with themselves, and also to how they'll navigate their transitions, trying to see, am I really complete in this union? Blended families are a bit strange because of the stigma that is out there. One of the things we have done is to roll out this whole idea of step in the house. So it's just, Jaden, it's Kaizen. It's nothing about, this is my step brother. There's nothing like that. So it's just, be you, do you, we are doing us, and we are moving on with this kind of life. So we're also trying to confront, because there are things which you may do so well in the house, but they go and encounter it outside. And then they come back to reflect.
The narrative outside is not in tandem with the narrative at home.
And they come back. But when they feel that the internal narrative in the house is stronger and it's true and it's synthetic and it's coming from a place of depth, and like for me, experience, then they realize, and that's one of the things which I'm trying to do, is to say, I wouldn't want to be in a situation whereby I slip out unintentionally. Because I don't want a situation whereby they start seeing a level of absence. Because I saw absence. So small things like, if I come late, I'll ensure that I will delay leaving the house so that they just see me.
In the morning.
They just see presence. If I know I will spend the day out for a while, I try to come in the middle of the day. They just see me before they sleep. At least once they know there is a father present. Small things which I'm trying to say, that it will try to avoid that narrative of absence. My dad was not there. That is something which I'm trying to avoid with the idea of just presence in little ways.
How has fatherhood changed you?
It has just made me to realize that to a big extent, as a person, you rarely have time to introspect deep within yourself in terms of your core, who you really are. Fatherhood has made me to realize you cannot lie. You just have to be authentic.
That's true.
Because a child will catch you. You can't give them 10 stories.
My boy Simon Baby says, you parent from who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just has to be authentic. So fatherhood has given me that level of introspecting on who I really am. What outside the church system, what is my value system? Because nowadays the idea is we subcontract the church or the religious institution to go and get the value system there, go and get the education system from the school, and then come and get the discipline now from me as the father and the 3 P's that I'm giving. But I think for me it has helped me to realize what is my core, my value system, what I stand for. So then when it comes to like discipline, I am able to discipline from my core because they can see what I do. There are things which I'm coming to appreciate in terms of just being truthful. Explain to the children, I don't know, I will find out, I will ask, I will inquire, because there is no space of being macho. They will know. Nowadays, these children will go and Google.
I've fired house helps for lying to my children.
Exactly.
I said, when it comes to the kids, we tell them the truth all the time.
Yeah.
All the time, we tell them the truth. And that has forced me to even work on my little white lies. The ones you say, no, I'm coming back.
Yes.
You're not intending on coming back.
Yes.
I'll bring you something you don't intend on bringing, You follow through on the things that you say.
True.
What did you learn from your father?
From my father?
From your father. What did he teach you?
I would think about English, because he was an English teacher. And he was just too specific on English. And I think also he taught me, he was a good communicator and a good negotiator. So I learned from him, I think, the few instances just to negotiate situations, to handle things with negotiation and dialogue, and not necessarily fighting and being physical and being a brawler. I think what you would normally call non-violent means of conflict resolution. So I think he was big on that.
And you've definitely picked that from him.
Yes, and I remember I saw him cook once. There's a time he came in one of those instances which were just and he fixed us lunch. I think the house girl was not there, and so I cook for my children, and most of the time I tell them, come to the kitchen, you cook together. I hope they can also learn how to cook, and it doesn't necessarily redefine who they are, especially for the boys.
That's interesting, isn't it?
I think it is. It shatters the myth.
It does. Your dad, you said he came to your house this year?
Yes.
God gives him another 20, 30 years. What do you want your relationship with him to be?
Well, I just think we are in that space right now because now I'm a father. We've become more a bit into conversation. He calls, he finds out how is the family, how is my daughter, now my partner, how is my grandchildren, are they okay? He's becoming more concerned. Out of surprise, he's remembering to share a message or two. Christmas, Easter, he sent me a message. He's becoming very intentional also in his process, and I can see from where he's coming from. A father who was brought up, a man who was brought up in the 60s, born in just before 50s, saw what fatherhood means in terms of instruction and distance and hierarchy and power, raw power for that matter. Now talking about relationship, asking, being inquisitive. So I'm looking at a situation whereby perhaps I should just walk with him as he heals, as he deals with himself, as he finds his own form of reconciliation with whatever he would have done. I'm just thinking about listening to him, walking with him. I moved away, and I think that part of coming away from church helped me to move away from judging him. So now we can go and sit over a drink and just listen to him, and just listen to him and whatever he's doing and what gives him pleasure, what gives him happiness, because he's in his sunset years. There is no further you can do in terms of beating him with guilt. It won't help.
When your kids are your age, what kind of relationship do you want them to have with their father?
I think I want them to just have friendship. I want them to just know that there is a level of freedom and open conversation that we can have. I want to be the kind of father who will be remembered of just being free. So I take my son for football. We talk during the time I'm taking him. I take my other son also to, when he's doing his school, performances, we listen with him. Him is a musician, so we listen to him in music in the car. I download for him music. So I want to hopefully sustain that openness. I want hopefully to know, because with that openness, then they can tell me what frustrations they're going through. They know I can be a sounding board. And for me, that is what I'm trying to imagine, that besides the education and the food and the shelter and the provision, the supplies, what you'd call the daily supplies, I just want them to know that there's a sounding board they can refer. I hopefully wish that at least one of them will put me as a referee in their CV, just out of the fact that I'm a good character reference, or I'm a friend, or whatever, I'm a professional, whatever it is, just out of the bonding.
Wow. You've said something so profound. I don't know anyone who puts their dad on their CV as a reference. If you do, please tell me. Please write to me and tell me if you have your dad as your referee on your CV. Why don't I have my dad as a reference on my CV?
Relationship. Relationship. Is he the kind of person who is a go-to, That's what I'm just thinking.
Do I feel like he's credible enough?
Yes. Does he know you well? Can he vouch for you? Can he, if he's called by anyone, can he vouch and say, yes, that guy can do this?
Wow. Hey, what a conversation, man. How are you feeling?
I feel relieved. I feel this is a conversation which hopefully should continue. And I think our stories as men, as I told you earlier, we shouldn't look at this idea of unstructured fatherhood as a disadvantage. I call it broken fatherhood, but broken to be made whole. Because then our children will grow from these experiences and do it better in their context, better in their times, better for their children, better for their spouses. So I want just to encourage men out there who are struggling and who may feel like my story does not fit the perfect model. A nuclear family with everything that is there, and you've gone to these national schools and private universities and you've had all the degrees, it doesn't necessarily have to fit. You could have done a certificate, a diploma, a degree, you've stopped, you've changed jobs in the middle, you've had to change home, you've had to do whatever you has to do to put the family together. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it and just cultivate the bonding with your children in the small things that are at your level. If we want to raise authentic families and authentic children who will be able to have a backbone to stand up, we have to do it at home. It is a mockery if we think we are going to be on our keyboards talking about what should happen, but at home we are doing complete opposite.
Well, folks, you heard it from Edward Wanyonyi. You're a father worthy. You're a father deserving. If you're doing the right things, if you're providing, if you're giving direction, if you're giving his 3 Ps, gentlemen, you're in the right place. You're doing the right thing. You're the right father for your children. Keep doing it. Keep bonding with them. Keep building those values that will change our country. I must have Edward back to discuss blended families and to discuss how to be a husband to 3. Oh, I'm joking. Yes, husband to 3 men. Okay, to 1.
Only 2.
But a father to this. How does blended families work? I want to hear that. That might look like my future. So thank you for listening to Living Truthfully. I'm looking forward to hearing your father's story. Next week, we talk about dad some more. And I want to hear about yours.